There is something this person has never said to you out loud. Something they have been carrying privately, carefully, behind a wall they built to protect themselves from having to admit how much you still mean to them. And today, these 6 cards are going to tell you exactly what that is. Hi, I'm Liz. Think of the person who came to mind the moment you saw this title, the one your heart recognized immediately. Hold them, because what I'm feeling in this spread is one of the most specific, most emotionally layered readings I have pulled in a long time. Every card in this spread is a piece of what is happening inside them, what they are thinking, what they are hiding, and where this is going. Stay until the last card. This story does not end where you might expect. The first card is the 2 of Wands, and I want to start here because this card tells me something important about the current moment, not the past, not eventually, but right now. This person is thinking about you, not in the distant, occasional way that someone thinks about a person who once mattered. I sense a very active, very specific quality of thought, the kind where you are not just a memory, but a present consideration, where their mind returns to you not out of habit, but out of something that has not resolved itself, no matter how much time has passed. The 2 of Wands shows a figure standing at a threshold, holding the world in their hands, looking out toward a horizon. And what I feel from this card is that this person is standing at exactly that kind of threshold right now. Internally, they are weighing something, debating something, trying to decide whether to move towards you or to stay exactly where they have been staying, which is close enough to feel you but far enough to feel protected from the vulnerability of actually reaching. For some people in this reading, I sense this person has been observing you from a distance, watching what you post, what you say, what your life looks like, without making contact, not out of indifference, out of calculation, out of the specific hesitation of someone who wants to reach but does not yet know if reaching is safe. What the 2 of Wands makes absolutely clear is that the reaching is being considered. The decision has not been made, but the thinking is happening. You are in their mind right now as a direction, not just a memory. And the difference between a memory and a direction is everything. But then comes the Devil. And I want to read this card carefully. Not because it is frightening, but because it is honest. And the truth it carries about this person is more revealing than almost anything else in this spread. I sense an obsession. Not in a dark or destructive sense. In the deeply human sense of someone who cannot stop thinking about something no matter how many times they tell themselves to. They have tried to move on. I feel that clearly. There have been deliberate attempts to create distance, to replace what they feel, to convince themselves that what they feel for you is something they can think their way out of. And every single time, you come back. Not because they went looking, but because their mind returns to you on its own in the spaces they don't control. For some people watching, I sense this has a quality of contradiction. This person may appear fine on the outside, may appear to have moved on, may have even said things that suggested they were done with this connection. But the Devil is the card of what lives underneath the performance, of the attachment that survives the story. Someone tells the world about how they feel, and what lives underneath their performance is not indifference. What lives underneath is want, a want so strong and so complicated by fear, by pride, by whatever happened between you that didn't get resolved, that they haven't known what to do with it. So they have done what many people do with feelings that feel too large to handle. They push them down, named them something safer, tried to outrun them. The Devil says the running has not worked. It never does, with feelings like these. And underneath that, quietly, almost despite themselves, the 6 of Pentacles is emerging. This card surprised me in this position, and I mean that in the most meaningful way. Because the 6 of Pentacles is a card of wanting to give, of recognizing an imbalance and feeling the pull toward correcting it. And what I sense here, specifically for this person, is something they may not have said out loud, but that is beginning to surface in how they think about your connection. They know they didn't show up the way they should have, not necessarily in a dramatic way. Sometimes it is the accumulation of small things. The moments they chose distance when you needed presence, the times they withheld something, honesty, effort, vulnerability, simply showing up because it felt too risky or too exposing or too much like admitting how much it mattered to them. And now, in the space created by your absence or by the silence that has grown between you, they are starting to feel the weight of that imbalance. I sense a desire to give something back, to show up in a way they didn't before. The Six of Pentacles is not the card of grand gestures. It is the card of genuine willingness, of someone who has moved past the self-protective denial of the devil and arrived at something more honest, the acknowledgement that something was owed and was not given, and the beginning of a desire to change that. This is a quiet but significant shift. The person who is running from their feelings in the devil is the same person who is beginning, slowly, carefully, to turn around. But the Seven of Swords tells me that none of what I just described is visible to you yet. And this is the card I feel most clearly for the people finding this reading, because I sense that from the outside, from your position, and this person appears unmoved, unaffected, perhaps even deliberately unbothered. They have crafted an exterior that does not match the interior this reading is revealing, and that gap between what they show and what they feel is the source of so much confusion in your situation. I want to name something directly. If you have been questioning yourself, if you've been wondering whether you imagined the connection, whether what you sensed between you was real, whether you have been holding on to something that only existed on your side, the Seven of Swords is the answer to that question. You are not imagining it. You have never been imagining it. The reason it has been so hard to read this person is not because there is nothing there to read. It is because they have been intentionally making themselves difficult to read. The guardedness is not emptiness, it is armor. And armor is only worn by someone who has something worth protecting. What they are protecting, behind the distance, behind the silence, behind the performance of not caring, is the depth of what they actually feel. And then something shifts. The star arrives. And I feel this card the way I always feel the star in a reading, like a window opening in a room that has been closed too long, like the first breath of real air after a lot of time spent in the managed, controlled atmosphere of someone trying very hard not to feel. What I sense with the star in this position is an internal softening in this person. Something is beginning to give way, not dramatically, quietly. The walls that have been so carefully maintained are developing cracks, not from external pressure, but from the simple unsustainability of keeping something this large contained indefinitely. There is only so long a person can hold down a real feeling before it begins to find its way to the surface, regardless of what they intended. I sense healing happening for them, again privately, in ways you cannot see. Old wounds that made them this guarded in the first place beginning to close enough that the behavior those wounds produced starts to become less necessary. The fear that drove the running in the devil beginning to lose some of its authority. The honesty they have been keeping from themselves about how much they miss you, about what your connection actually meant, about what they want, becoming harder to deny. The star is the card of returning hope. And what I feel is that hope is returning to this person specifically in relation to you. Not a general hopefulness. Hope about this, about what might still be possible, about whether it is too late, about whether the thing they have been too afraid to say might still have somewhere to land. It does. And the final card is the Two of Cups. I want to read this card slowly because this is where the entire story has been moving, and I want you to feel the full weight of what it means. The Two of Cups is the card of genuine, mutual, openly offered connection. It is two people turning toward each other at the same time, not one person reaching and hoping. Both people reaching, both people willing, both people finally operating from the same place of honesty, rather than two different places of performance and protection. I sense that this is where this situation is heading, not as a vague someday, as the natural conclusion of the sequence this reading has described. The internal shift of the star does not stay internal forever. At some point, the softening becomes a decision. The hope becomes a reach. The person who was hiding behind the Seven of Swords, who was trapped by the complexity of the devil, who has been quietly turning toward the willingness of the Six of Pentacles. At some point, they speak. For some people in this reading, I sense this happens through a direct conversation, something honest, something that acknowledges what has been unspoken, something that does not require perfection to be meaningful. Just truth. Just the simple, enormous act of saying what has actually been there this whole time. For others, it arrives differently. A small reach first, a message, a moment of contact, something that opens a door without pushing through it immediately, an invitation, subtle but unmistakable to someone who has been paying attention. What the Two of Cups says is that what is being built toward, underneath everything this reading has described, the longing and the hiding and the healing and the returning hope, is not one-sided resolution. It is reunion, a meeting point. Two people arriving at the same place after taking very different routes to get there. You have been honest with yourself about what you feel. They are becoming honest with themselves about what they feel. And the Two of Cups says that honesty, when it arrives in full on both sides, has somewhere to go. This does not end in silence. This ends in two people, finally, at the same moment, choosing to stop pretending they are okay with distance when what they actually want is each other. That moment is coming. And it has been building in ways you couldn't see in the private interior of someone who missed you more than they ever showed. For longer than you know. Leave a comment and claim this message. Like this if it landed. Subscribe for more readings and share this with someone who needs to know that the silence they've been receiving is not the full story. I'll see you in the next one.